I don't believe in social equality. I believe in equality of the law. I don't believe in social equality.
All right, to gain social advantage. Or is it acceptable to organize politically to gain social advantage?
I would say that it's acceptable, but I would not think that political organization would be the way to go at this point. I think that what we need is economic advancement, and I don't think that economic advancement in the end can be very substantial if it is done through politics.
You're obviously aware that you're criticized by blacks for making all the, what they call the worn out, many blacks, for making all the worn out arguments in behalf of racism that whites used to make. Let them do it their way, let them work it out their way, let them...
Well, you see, that was interpreted as benign neglect or just out and out racism, but in recent years it's called benign neglect. I have only this to say about that. Because of my views, I've had difficulties getting jobs, finding a job. Fortunately, I will go to Washington and Lee in January, and I hope that phase of my career is now over. But prior to now, it's been rather difficult. And in one of my interviews, job interviews, 2 years ago, it was asked of me very seriously by the faculty. This was a Northern Urban University. They were concerned about whether I would, in my counseling of the students, encourage students to what they call the bootstrap method of mobility. Would I encourage this among students? They were concerned that I would, not that I wouldn't.
And your answer?
Of course I would. I said that I don't have any particular ideology. I come here to teach my subject, but in talking with students about their careers, I will always tell them, look at your assets, look at what you have, and try to do with what you have. Don't first begin thinking of what you can take from the other fellow. That's not a way to go, because in the end you will lose, especially what the other fellow has got is a great deal of power. But they were concerned that I would come to their school and teach their black students. These are white, northern white liberals who would call me, would say that I'm advocating benign neglect. They would want me to neglect black students by encouraging them not to, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, which is the very thing that white Americans have done. You know, I don't understand this. What kind of friend is this? What kind of friend? I mean, I'm only saying what they do for themselves. I'm saying that we blacks should do. But if I say it, I am encouraging something that is against my race, and so forth and so on. I don't need friends like these. The black community doesn't need friends like this, who tells us to deny the self-sufficient, self-help element of our heritage. No. My father feels that he's been totally ignored in all of this. He's very angry.
Angry?
Yes, because no one gives him credit for having raised his 5 children on his own and put all of them through college without any help from Uncle Sam. It's not in the books. And he's very bitter. He's very, very bitter.
Are you bitter?
No, I'm not bitter. I understand it. He is very bitter. He feels... They're saying that we don't do anything on our own. They say that we always need the government to come in and help us do things. This is the sort of thing they're saying about us. This is what he says. And he wanted to be known as the man who raised the 5 kids and through college. And nobody knows about it.
You wrote an essay once called Silence. And you said, but all these people have identity. They have a place. They know of fear, anger, anxiety, sadness, graft, hate, inferiority, superiority. I know only of contempt for them and loneliness for myself because I could not belong. I could never belong.
Where did you find that? Yes, that essay was written the summer of 1963 when I was, 20, I guess, yeah. And there is something wrong with that statement. I did feel very much so then that I didn't belong. I saw everyone was gearing up for the March on Washington that summer. I was in Washington preparing for my Peace Corps orientation training at Syracuse, and everyone knew what they were supposed to be doing that summer. And there I was feeling that I couldn't do what they were doing and that I was very much alone. I don't feel that now. I didn't know that at that time that the ideas I had, which were really more or less snatches of thought and floating abstractions and longings, that there had been people long ago who'd had the same sorts of sentiments and ideas, that I could find them in the founding fathers, that I could find them in the Greeks, I could find them all over the place, that I could find them in literature. I didn't know that I could where to go, and so I did feel that. I now know, and I don't feel alone at all. I also don't have contempt. I was then someone who knew that she disagreed, but who didn't want to pay the price of disagreement. And it wasn't until I was much older that I understood that if I was going to disagree, there was a price to pay. And I don't like it, but I'll pay it.
From the Hoover Institution in Stanford, California, this has been a conversation with Ann Wortham. I'm Bill Moyer.